afternoon here in London. We'll kick off this in just a second. We'll kick off with a piece of music first, though, by Tim Haines. Somebody Turn On a Light. This is particularly relevant because it's about the NHS, and we'll be talking about the NHS and Brollygarks today. So this is Tim Hain, the wonderful guy who created reggae, about somebody turn on the lights in a hospital.
Would you walk me to my car? I'm afraid of the dark. Just last week I was attacked in a car park. Was a gang of youths, could see I'm a cripple and I can't walk. I said, oh my God, she's easy prey. Everybody's easy prey these days. But was there ever honor among thieves? Still it's hard to believe. Somebody turn on the light. It's getting mighty dark. Somebody turn on the light. I don't care who you are. Somebody turn on the light. Illuminate my soul. Illuminate this world. My girl's uncle lying in a hospital bed, almost dead. He asks for water, 9 o'clock in the morning. They bring him his water, 6 o'clock in the evening, and I say, oh my God, I don't understand. The world we're living in, this is England.
Isn't that wonderful? Wonderful Tim Haines, local musician, the guy who founded Blegay, and he's a genius, singing about the NHS. Now, we've had a serious technical problem here today, and I apologize to anybody that may be locked out or only sees this later on after it's recorded. Just can't figure it out. We seem to have a dual recording going on, so just deleted one, and I hope this is the right one. I do apologize. We'll bring our expert Wayne Denner back in next week and try and figure this out, so my profuse apologies if we're messing anybody around. We're going to be talking about today in the Sustack Plans Chat Club. Reggie and myself, Reggie all the way from Fort Worth, Texas, and myself, PR Smith, from London. We're going to be talking about some serious stuff that we commenced with last week. It's kind of shocking and upsetting to some people, this stuff. We talked about a major piece that I wrote on LinkedIn called How Can We Stop the Brollygarks from Controlling Us? So we did part 1 last week. We'll do part 2 this week. So part 1, I'll kind of do a summary of, and part 2, we're going to be looking at the other identifiers of these brollygarks, these big brother techno leaders, digital oligarchs or brollygarks. So we'll do part 1, we'll summarize that. Part 2, we'll look at the identifiers such as theft, data, lies, and fear. We'll focus on content theft, and we'll talk about comparing the Brollygark success with Napster failure. We'll talk about data, the NHS having the National Health Service in the UK having a major problem with Palantir. That's been reported by the British Journal of Medicine. And talk about lies, Elon Musk's latest bid to overturn the deep fake ban, which to me is the most blatant ever move towards the destruction of truth, I'm thinking. Now, we will put 10 steps to stop the Brollygarks in there, and Alex Brown has done something that I'm going to mention to you. It's a little business idea generator, which we'll look at, time allowing. And more good news, we'll mention the Take It Down Act has passed in the US House of Representatives. So that's really good news, and we'll talk about that later on. But to kick off with, let me do a summary of where we were last week. So this piece that I wrote called How Can We Stop the Brollygarks Controlling Us and Controlling Our Lives? It was prompted by this wonderful book by Sarah Wynne Williams called Careless People. And it's a shocking insight into Facebook and the carry on and the approach and the attitude and the arrogance. It's unbelievable. And I mixed that with a wonderful TED TED Talk by Carol Cadwalladr. Now, she is an ex-Guardian or Observer journalist that did a stunning TED Talk back in 2019. It took about 4 or 5 years to get up and pick herself up after the reaction it got, her first talk. Anyway, she's done another one, which is 2025, TED Talk 2025. Carol has done an even more excellent piece of work. So combining the two of those together, I think we've got something most unusual, and I want to share it with you. So we put that's where it came from. It's kind of a summary of both of those very significant pieces, the TED Talk and the book. So we talked last week about, what is a broligarch, and we explained it's the big brother oligarch concept. Those with the power and databases are now lobbying to change regulations and to suit their agenda. And then we looked at how do broligarchs control us. So we looked at some more of those variables today. And but last week we touched upon a few, and we also talked about well, that's enough from last week. So this week we're going to look at more of the identifiers of the broligarchs, and we look at content theft, data abuse, and data ? Abuse, and lies, and the removal of the truth, disinformation winning the day, it seems, at the moment. So just to put that back in perspective, we're going to ask Reggie to talk about content theft. Now, it's a big issue with AI. Elton John and more musicians coming out every week saying this is completely wrong, that AI should be allowed to scrape their data, their music, their songs, their films, their books, their works, and use it to give informed answers and creative images and so on and so forth. So theft is a big, and intellectual property is a big issue. You saw something during the week, Reggie, and I thought it was a very interesting comparison with something that's happened before. So what have you got there, Reggie?
Well, do you guys remember? I don't know how many people remember Napster. That was like turn of the millennium, and Napster was out, and it was a torrent program. And you might have heard torrent in the news recently in reference to, well, we'll get to that in a second, but it allowed peer-to-peer sharing, and it was a platform that allowed people to share MP3s, the newly created compressed music format, so people could download at a reasonable size all their favorite songs without paying for them. And Napster allowed you to do this peer-to-peer, so no one party was responsible for pirating because other people had it on their computers. This was just at the time when people were starting to be constantly connected to the internet. So Napster, the big companies, the big music companies and other people took Napster to court. Well, they actually went to Congress, and they said Napster's hijacked our music. I remember the drummer from Metallica testifying, these anarchy bands talking about how we need laws and all that. And they got Napster shut down. Napster never really was able to transition into a streaming music service, but it was a big deal. Now I feel like we kind of have the opposite, where the big companies are taking all this copyrighted data, and they're they didn't want individual people to be able to access the copyrighted data of the big companies, but now the big companies have the individual common citizens copyrighted data, and they're using it, but yet there's not the same push from Congress to protect them. And I still remember there was one congressman back in the Napster days who threw out this suggestion, not jokingly, that all computers should be connected to a centralized system, and if they detected pirated content on it, it should send an electrical signal to blast their hard drive and destroy their hard drive. That was a solution to the piracy problem. And now we found out Meta not only do they have pirated content, but Meta used a torrent system to hide their tracks in downloading a massive pirated library. So they're even using systems similar to Napster to steal this copyrighted content, but nobody's talking about blowing up their servers when they detect pirated content or illegally gained personal user data. So it's an interesting analogy, and the difference it makes to be a billionaire lobbying Congress versus the common citizen.
Which is tragic, really, because we're concerned over here in the UK as well that the government seems to be leaning towards the broligarchs as it stands at the moment. The IP protection, the idea of fair use being deemed to be scraping of whatever you want is fair use because it's used as research to develop something else. That just doesn't cut it with me. It really doesn't. And I think we are all in danger. Artists, writers, filmmakers, photographers, anybody that said anything is in danger of being just hoovered up by the Broligarchs at the moment. They seem to be getting their way. So wake up, folks, and be active. Well, we look at the what 10 things you can do to try and slow this down or stop it altogether. So that's kind of shocking to think they seem to be on the road towards taking whatever they want from whomever they want without paying for it. Now, it has been to court. There has been payments made. So, there are deals to be done. But certainly the creators need to be protected, I feel. So that's content theft. And, we've talked about this for many weeks, many months, over the years, actually, Reggie. It's here it is again. And it's really at a critical moment now. Because it may well be difficult to turn back if they allow it for a period and then withdraw it. They might say, "Oh, well, we only took it when it was legalized." So it's a real big issue, this content theft. So join the discussions with anybody, fill in the petitions, etc. It's one that we've got to stay abreast with. So that's content theft. So moving on, what else are the Broligarchs doing that actually gives them more power and control over us and our lives? Well, data is the second one. So I just want to mention this NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, which is renowned across the world, something that was brought in that everybody was entitled to healthcare, etc. in the UK. And, it's gone from strength to strength, but under huge pressure as the population ages and grows in different directions and so on. So, the NHS is under pressure. Now, that track we played, Somebody Turn on the Light by Tim Hain, was a stunning a song about, things getting difficult in the NHS, them being underfunded and people sleeping in corridors and that sort of thing. What has happened more recently with the NHS is they've done a deal with Palantir. Now, Reggie, do you remember, we've mentioned Palantir. Do you remember who's kind of the co-founder of Palantir?
Is it Peter Thiel? Peter Thiel, right?
Peter Thiel, yeah. And now we've talked about Peter Thiel before, and I'm just going to remind you some of the background to this. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to summarize. And the NHS, this is the British Journal, BJM, British Journal of Medicine. They are saying that the NHS must cancel its contract with Palantir. That's their headline. NHS must cancel its contract with Palantir immediately, is what the BJM are calling for. So that's got to be taken seriously. So let's just come back to Palantir, Broligarchs, etc. Do you remember last week I just mentioned this, that Palantir, is a company that specializes in software, very advanced software, AI, you name it, and is involved in military equipment and tools. It's also involved in databases and other AI and so on and so forth. Now, when the CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, was about to be introduced to an audience at the Asset Management CEO Forum, December last year. In her introduction, the MC said that, she'd heard people referring to each other as Palantirians. And she said, therefore, I think it's a kind of a cult. I think Palantir is a kind of a cult. They have Palantirians. She then went on to say, and it's all on record, and we put the links up with the notes afterwards. She then went on to say, it is a cult. Palantir is a cult. And that is what this is all about. These are her words. I'm not paraphrasing, so I'll say it one more time. It is a cult. That is what this is all about. It's very important, cult, that it is changing the shape of the world and controlling much of how the world order is going to happen. It's very important cult that's changing the shape of the world and controlling much of how the world order is going to happen. Now, that's not me. That is verbatim from a video introduction of Alex Karp. Now, Alex Karp, subsequently, the CEO of Palantir, subsequently went on to saying that, he looks forward to putting the fear of death into our adversaries at any random moment. And I'm thinking, really? The fear of death? This is extraordinary stuff. This is real Broligarch stuff. So, as I say, Palantir was co-founded by Peter Thiel, who is the co-founder of PayPal and an early investor in Facebook. So, they're all connected, these guys. Anyways, now to the NHS. With its headline, England must cancel its contract. England must cancel its contract with Palantir. Now, this is last year, the 1st of August, 2024. Doesn't get that much coverage, but it's 6 months ago, but it's more, but it's worth raising it. So it actually goes on till it refers to the year before as well. It says in November 2023, NHS England awarded Palantir a 330 million contract to create a new data management system called FDP, Federated Data Platform, which aims to provide a joined up service for the NHS, which all sounds great. Now, as you know, Palantir are an AI-powered military and surveillance technology and a data analytics company as well. Now, concerns have been raised about the cost of this contract, 330 million with Palantir, and whether it offered good value for money, and as well as questions about the public trust in Palantir and the actual procurement process that it went through to win that contract. So it's become increasingly controversial as Palantir has been vocally announced it is supporting the Israeli occupation forces, the IOF, with their assault in Gaza. Palantir signed a deal with the IOF to increase its advanced technology provision to Israel in support of war-related missions. And Palantir's CEO, Alex Karp, has actually said, not just wanting people to living with the fear of death. Here's a separate quote from Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, saying he is exceedingly proud of Palantir's involvement in what he calls operationally crucial operations in Israel. So, is that the kind of people we want to be doing business with and giving our data to? My data is in the hands of these guys now, which is quite worrying. IOF operations have been described as a war on hospitals, which is quite horrifying. So, the IOF has created a severe health and humanitarian crisis, in my opinion. And here's the NHS paying money to these guys that support this project in Palestine. So the International Court of Justice issued an interim judgment which states that Israel's actions constitute plausible genocide. So, we're not being biased here. There's the International Court of Justice. And of course, what the reaction will be, they'll just rubbish it and say, that they've been bribed or something. They'll just rubbish the truth. So allegations of favoritism by the NHS executives, backdoor meetings, donations to the Conservative Party, ministerial directives being used to override patient confidentiality rules, and Palantir's Peter Thiel's own confession that the company is buying its way in, unquote, to the NHS. This is why the BMJ are really kind of getting stuck in on this and saying this is unacceptable. So the British Medical Journal is particularly against this whole contract being given and the data that is given over to these guys.
That's a legitimate concern. Oh, I can hold my comment though.
No, go for it. Yep.
Well, in the U.S., I heard a U.S. senator from the Democrat side pointing out that what's happening with Musk is tearing up all these government contracts and they're going to his companies. And she pointed out this isn't about political left or right. This is a scam because he's saying tear up this government contract with whatever company and then give it to one of Musk's companies, and he's the one making the decisions. So in the U.S., this isn't even a backroom deal right now. And I'm not trying to make political commentary for left or right. I'm just saying we're watching this happen in a front room deal. And you see headlines. How many headlines have you seen? The government gives contract to one of Musk's companies.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. And Carol, from our Guardian newspaper, Carol actually said that she considered the access of Musk getting access to all the data in the White House about staff is a data hack. That's what she called it. This is a data hack and nothing less. And that data can be used then to get rid of staff and so on and so forth. We talked about that last week, but yeah, it does make you wonder, to say the least. So we'll finish this piece about data. That Palantir has a long and controversial history of supporting predictive policing, deportations, state surveillance, drones in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere. So the bottom line is that the journal actually says that the NHS England risks further losing the trust of health workers, patients, and the public if it continues with this contract with Palantir. So, pretty powerful stuff that the BJM is coming out and saying we've got to stop this contract. So that's one that we really should keep discussing and keep on the agenda. So again, data is a big part to play in that, and Palantir excel in the use of data.
So it seems to be a tech bro MO is what you're saying, is to try to get their hands on as much data as possible, whether it's in England or in the United States. The tech bros are trying to get access to data, and now they're going to governments potentially to try to access large swaths of data about consumers.
Yeah. I mean, data is the key to AI. Without the data, AI becomes redundant. So, the data is the big one. Yeah. Now, so we've talked about content theft with the Brolygarchs, talked about data and the Brolygarchs getting access to it in different ways. Upfront lies. Now, we've said some of the Brolygarchs just have said A when a week before they said it was B, and vice versa. So Musk is at it again, and he's suing to overturn the deep fake ban. I mean, is this for real, Reggie?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Minnesota was a kind of one of the early movers to create a deep fake ban for political deep fakes, especially around election time. They say, and the idea was it's not just like any random deep fake, and the penalties can include jail time, but disseminating a deep fake video, image, or audio if a person knows it's fake or acts with reckless disregard for authenticity, either within 90 days before a party nominating convention or after the start of early voting in a primary general election. But the intent must be to injure a candidate or influence an election result. So it gives a specific definition of that. But you notice that the intent must be to injure. So now Musk's company has come out and is actually suing, saying that this Minnesota law is unconstitutional. You should be allowed to make political deepfakes. Their reasoning saying is that it criminalizes what he considers First Amendment protected speech about elections, including sense of humor and humorous stuff and whatnot. But the interesting thing is the law does not preclude sense of humor. It talks about specifically anything that any reasonable person would believe is real and that's generated by artificial intelligence that's intended to injure. So it's not talking about if you're trying to create a satirical video. It's talking about it's outlawed stuff that's intended to injure a candidate. But Musk's company is suing and standing behind First Amendment. This is from the AP News, Steve Karnowski reporting on this, and they're trying to fight against it by suing, saying we should be allowed to do political deepfakes, which is a little concerning.
Yeah. So it's like the antithesis of the truth is deep fake. And so by stopping the identification, I know there's complications with all this stuff too, who decides what deep fake is good and what deep fake is bad. But here's a simple one that I've just thought of this morning. I'm sure others have as well, but is how about just banning any deep fake that is putting the sound of words into somebody else's film so it looks like they're saying it. Now, it could be funny stuff. It could be satirical. And so, yes, it could be. And that may be the cost of doing something like this. But maybe, by putting somebody else's words and making them sound like that person onto a video and making that look like real, that's a dangerous deep fake. Now, I've seen some of them that are satirical and they are quite funny, but maybe they just say for that area, no, we can identify deepfakes quite easily, and I'm sure they can. So apply a rule. Now, there are people worried about, you're now deciding what's legit and what isn't. But, we have to take steps. Otherwise, you sit back and nothing will happen.
It's concerning that the movement is coming from someone who is an established purveyor of disinformation. Yeah. And again, that's not just me saying that. You've seen the reports.
Yes.
Purveyor of disinformation on Twitter. So that a purveyor of disinformation is saying we need to keep the right to do political deepfakes within 90 days of an election.
Yeah. And I mean, Musk is the guy that actually, I was horrified at this, saying there will be riots in London, there will be civil war in the UK, making announcements like that. And a lot of people would say, oh, he's a very successful guy. I don't, a question mark on that at the moment, but and they'll take that as read, and that's frightening. That he could do that, and he can actually stoke it up and trigger it up and wire it up. So it's disgusting what goes on. And then back to the book with Sarah Wynne Williams stuff, about the kind of stuff that Facebook allowed to go out there that whipped people up to believe that certain people were doing terrible things, and then crowds of people attack them and kill them, and blood on the hands. It's disgusting, this stuff. So we need to protect the truth. Carol actually Cadwallader says that protect facts. You may not always have them. Protect them. Remember how valuable, how good a thing was, a true fact. It's a dying concept, it seems. Now, we've just only got about 4 minutes left. So what we are going to do, we'll put the business idea generator onto next week. But I'm going to give you just a summary of the 10 steps to beat the Broligarchs, and then we can go into them in more detail next week. So for now, let's just run through the top 10. And this is mostly from Carol's work. So number 1 is don't accept cookies. And it does slow you down, and you have to go through and choose. And anyway, number 1, don't accept cookies. Number 2, don't give your real name. Number 3, download Signal, the encrypted messaging app. Number 4, don't bomb Yemen. Number 5, don't add the editor of The Atlantic to your group chats. Now, that's hilarious. Because he paid the price, didn't he? Trump has booted him out. But anyways, she's got a sense of humor, Carol has as well. Number 6, and this is deadly serious, and anybody who has children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, or just knows the kids' neighbors next door, this one is for us all. Don't experiment on children. Now, what does that mean? Here's what Carol says. Social mores change. We don't send children down coal mines anymore. And in years to come, allowing your child to be data harvested from birth will be considered child abuse. You didn't know, but now you do. Chilling stuff. Okay, number 7, privacy is power. Again from Carol, and the more of it, and we have more of it than we think we have. I have this little epiphany yesterday, says Carol, in which I realized actually the moments when I felt most powerless were the moments that I felt I was actually most powerful. She's got just such fire in her belly. She's just a wonderful, wonderful lady. And then she goes on to say, it was because my journalism had an impact and they want us to feel powerless. That's the plan. These Broligarchs want us to feel powerless. That's the plan. There is so much, though, that we can learn from people who've been through this before. And she says that in her TED Talk 2025. Again, we'll put the links to this in the show notes, where Reggie, maybe you might just key them in. There is prsmith.org/AI-topics. That's prsmith.org /AI-topics. So we'll put the links to all of this stuff in there. So that's number 7. Number 8 is it's going to take a movement, but we can. Number 9, learn from movements that have been there before us. And number 10, but you definitely won't win if you don't fight. Carol Cadwallader. So she's a wonderful, wonderful writer. We'll put the links to her TED Talk and everything else we've talked about. Going to finish now because it's 1 minute to go. We will continue this discussion because I think it's really serious, important stuff. But we do like to end on a positive note. And the positive note, which I'm pleased to say, is something that popped up from somebody that I really do like, and that's Nikki Reisberg in the States. She's worth following, by the way, if you're concerned about children protection online and so on. She's really, really doing some great work. She gave us some good news yesterday when she said that basically we are now with the good news that the House of Representatives in the USA actually voted 409-2 in support of the Take It Down Act. So it's been passed there. So now we just wait for this act to be signed by President Trump. Now, it'd be very interesting to see, or maybe it's happened today already, who knows? But watch out for it. The Take It Down Act. It's been approved by both houses, and that for me is just fantastic news. So we'll put the link to Nikki Riceberg announcement of that, because she explains a bit more about protecting your children on that video as well, and that's worth a view. It is 1:30 UK time. It's 7:30 a.m. With you, Reggie, over in lovely Fort Worth, Texas. The weekend is here. I'm off to Ireland tomorrow for a reunion with my old school in Rockwell and Tipperary. He's been meeting all my school rugby mates and characters from years gone by. So I'm excited for that. Reggie, I hope you've got a good weekend coming up too. And we will resume our conversation. We'll post the notes up, but we'll resume the conversation next Friday, same time, same bat channel, as always. I apologize deeply to anybody that's only seen this on a recording, because something happened and we duplicated the event for some reason. So we'll try and fix that for next week. But we're going to finish again where we started, which was with the wonderful Tim Haines. And he wrote this song called Somebody Turn On the Lights. And it was really referring to the NHS, being in a hospital. So he's describing being in a hospital or a car park, then being in a ward and, looking for a bit of water and in the darkness in the NHS and the National Health Service under huge stress. So this is particularly appropriate, given that we spent time talking about Palantir and the BJM saying that they feel the NHS should cancel its contract with Palantir. So here we go. Tim Hain, I wish you all a great weekend. Reggie, to you too. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Paul.
Here's Tim Hain. Turn On the Lights.
Would you walk into my car? I'm afraid of the dark. Just last week I was attacked in a car park. Was a gang of youths could see I'm a cripple and I can't walk. I said, oh my God, she's easy prey. Everybody's easy prey these days. But was there ever honor among thieves? Still it's hard to believe. Somebody turn on the light. It's getting mighty dark. Somebody turn on the light. I don't care who you are. Somebody turn on the light. Illuminate my soul. Illuminate this world. My girl's uncle, lying in a hospital bed, almost dead. He asked for water, 9 o'clock in the morning. They bring him his water, 6 o'clock in the evening, and I say, oh my God, I don't understand. The world we're living in, this is England. Can't afford water for a dying man. Spend millions on war and weapons. Can't comprehend. Somebody turn on the light. It's getting mighty dark. Somebody turn on the light. I don't care who you are. Somebody turn on the light. Illuminate my soul. Illuminate this world. Bring guidance to those who have none. Hope to those whose hope has gone. Voice to those whose voice has been stolen. Heart to those whose hearts have been broken. Victims of a false economy. Trading our humanity for war and cruelty. And all the time between birth and death, we draw this priceless breath. Somebody turn on a light. Yeah. Somebody turn on a light. Like Brother Bob said, so much trouble